We go to the bread and butter. We know exactly what we need. Charge with the back. Permanent attack. We know the Champions League. Strawberry gases, energy counts. He went to play for Arsenal and he said that. He passes with his left foot, he passes with his right, and when we win the league again, I think this time we're like, oh, Fabregas is magic, he wears magic. Abramovich. 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 Chelsea's number 3.
Richard, are you ready at your end?
Hundreds of them.
Are you ready at your end? Yeah, and I've swapped the mics with Ivan and I. So you hear us okay?
Can you hear me all right, Richie? We can tell it. I'll tell you
Power.
again. So you know, if you're sitting next to someone you shouldn't, move.
Power and Ivan's lapel mic's okay. You hear that?
Can you hear me all right, Richard? Testing, testing.
And mine
1,
should
2,
be on now
3.
too.
Can you hear me, Richard? Come in, Richard. Yeah, I got it. I got it. Right, I got it. Dum 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 dum. That was Mission Impossible. That was.
Right.
You ready?
2, 1.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, folks.
What's that? We haven't done nothing yet. Hang on a minute. We've not done anything yet. Okay, right. We are doing now. Come in, ladies. Don't be late. Don't be shy. We were going to be discussing past lives, and then we're going to take you through a meditation, and we'll see what happens. Yes? Right. Now, subject, and there will be arguments within the next hour, guaranteed, because we all have different perceptions or different beliefs, or we think of past lives differently. Yes? I can guarantee what I believe with past lives, Ashley believes something completely different. The problem is, it's not a problem, the thing is, that there's no right or wrong, it's what you believe, it's your belief. Yes? We'll all find out one day. Not too soon, I hope, for any of you. But we'll all find out one day, because have we all had past lives? Sure now? Yes, absolutely. Of course we have. Got to have, haven't we? If you all believe in life after death, you all come back. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, okay? Because you've heard people say, okay, we'll talk about karma, right? Because people associate karma with past lives. Does that make sense? Yeah? And you think, if you're going for a load of rubbish in this life, I'm thinking, you've heard the expression, I must have something really nasty in a previous life. Yes? Yeah, my belief, and it is my belief, because we all can share our opinions, can't we? And I'm actually right, but never mind. Because it's like, the clue's in the name. Past life. Past. Done. Finished. This is a new one. Yeah? So why would you be responsible for something you did in a past life? When you've got a new fresh life, clean slate. You know, what's it when the baby's born? Not fresh as a baby, it's not fresh, is it? As innocent as a newborn baby. Yes? Fresh babies. I can eat a baby. No, it's like, sorry. No. Scottish, that's... Okay. There you go. Freedom. Yeah, innocent as a newborn baby. Yes, all that expression. Okay. I mean, if you look at some mythology, you cross the river Styx to get it, like your soul's cleansed clean when you start a new life again. I do believe that's a Greek philosophy or Greek mythology. Lots of different things. But it's like me. I'll give you an example. I walk up to Ashley, I smack him straight in the mouth. He says, when he gets up, "What'd you do that for?" I said, "It's what you did to me in a previous life." Don't make sense, does it? No? This is just my opinion. I'm just sharing some stuff out. But there we went, previous lives. I mean, I am actually, I was going to say was. I am the hypnotherapist qualified. Hard work, isn't it? No, I am actually a qualified hypnotherapist. Okay, I did it years and years ago. I don't practice it anymore, but I can still do it, I suppose. But it's like when you deal with past lives that way. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. The only problem I have, and it is an issue with me, what's the point? Anyone?
To learn
What?
somebody else's
Oh, sorry, was it? Who was it?
To learn somebody else's perspective and take
Yeah, you can do. It's an interest. I find it's an interest. It doesn't have. I believe that there's no relevance on what we do today because you have your choices and your what's the word I'm thinking of? Your choices and your freedom, your will, free will.
Personal
Now, does that make sense? It's past. It's done. And let's be honest, we all think we're nice people, don't we? Or we all try to be nice people. Yes?
Yes.
Wake up! Okay, we all try to be nice people. Then in previous life, chances are you would have been a murderer. You would have been a rapist. You would have been there. Do you know what I mean? Because say, go back a couple of hundred years. Some people, say it was China, right? You get up, you go and have a sword fight, kill someone, a bit of breakfast, go and have a sword fight, kill someone else. It was normal. Does that make sense? It was normal for men to treat women like dogs, wasn't it? You know what I mean? Things like that were normal back in the day. Just because we live in a very civilised society now, it's my arse. But and our perception, that's what I was looking for. Our perception is slightly different than when it was in previous lives. Does that make sense? Right, now, okay, I mean, could we be different genders in previous lives? Of course we can, yes. Sorry about that. And my belief as well is like this life, you know when you meet someone for the first time and you know, oh, I know you. Does that make sense? You probably have come across it in a previous life. And also the partnerships you forge and etc., your parents, children, was you all connected before in a previous life? Very possibly. But they might not have been your mum, might be your dad, it could be, your brother could have been your wife, your son could have been your mother. Very complicated. Bit Jeremy Kyle, that, wasn't it? But you would all connect, that makes sense? You'd all connect. Now, could we learn anything from our previous lives?
Yes, hopefully.
What? Tell me what? Yeah, right and all. Right and all, not to come back again. I wouldn't. I mean, I know people say, they do, because the problem is we don't really know. Does that make sense? We don't know. We can only have a... You take a picture of me? Don't do that again, man. Yeah. Go through my notes, please. I've got where I was. Yes, where was I? What did I just say?
You're talking about past lives.
Past lives, yeah, that's right, yes. I must have had a bad memory in the past life.
The importance of not holding on to it.
Yeah, you don't hold on to it. That's my point. You don't hold on to it because the attitudes and the way society was will be completely different 100 years ago than it is now. Yeah? You know, I mean, genders change. You could be different genders, this, etc. Could you be a different country, different parts of the world? Of course you can. Yes, because you are what? In essence, what are you? Spirit. Thank you, spirit. And in essence, you have what? Soul. Thank you. Does that soul have gender? Does that soul have sexuality? Oh, I hope so. But, it doesn't, does it? So you could be anything. I know it's a bit hard to get your head around, isn't it, sometimes? But like I say, no one knows. Yes? So if I learnt something about what happened in World War II, for example, if I was in World War II, I don't know. Don't think I was. Actually wasn't. How good will that help me now? Do you see what I mean? I like it as an interest. It's an interest because it's past. I mean, people do say before we come down, we choose our lives. You've all heard that, haven't you? I have a problem with this. Because if I chose my life, I wouldn't be here. I'd have a nice shop. I'd be out and I'd be smoking a cigar with 100-fold bottles around me. And I ain't talking Airfix. That's what I would have chosen. I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, but you know what I mean? And karma, don't get me started on karma. I mean, I do believe there's a karma with this life, but not the previous. Because it's like new beginnings, new slate. Do we come down here to learn? Of course we come down here to learn. The problem is, if we all come down here to learn, who are the bloody teachers? I'm talking about here on the airplane. Has anyone been regressed or had a hypnotherapy or regression with a past life? Yeah? Find it interesting? It's interesting. One of the reasons I don't do it anymore with the hypnotherapy is because there's no proof. Does that make sense? Although, I say that, If you go back, you think you was a woman called Karen Smith. What's she got Karen Smith, actually? I wonder what she's doing. Karen Smith and blah, 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 lived it wherever. You could look up records, couldn't you? Does that make sense? Yeah. But anyway, but then, could you have noticed that Karen Smith before or picked up somewhere off the tip? Do you know what I mean? It's weird. And because everyone would like to be, I'd love to be someone famous in the day. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's great, isn't it? Why? Don't know. But it's always nice if you do have a reading or you get your guide, talk to your guides, and you have a good idea what you was, if someone else told you. Does that make sense? Yeah. Which is quite nice, isn't it? It just confirms a few things. But it's interesting, I think. Now you've got to get Ash's views on it. Completely different, I bet.
So that was theory one. Oh, there we go. Mike's dead.
See, God says you're wrong.
And he's changed his mind. So that was theory one. Give a slightly alternative theory. I actually agree probably at a foundation with almost everything Ivan has said. But I want to give you just a couple of alternative theories. Somewhere between Ivan and my theory could be the truth. It could be totally out there. All of this is caveated by our opinions. I do agree in the concept of incarnation, reincarnation, and past life. So I believe in that concept. Do I think everybody reincarnates? No, I don't. I don't think it's an absolute law. I don't think you have to. I think that when we talk about this experience right now, I often talk about that as an incarnation. We've incarnated at that point of conception. When mum and dad, we incarnate. And I believe, to a certain extent, that we have an influence over where we might go at that point of conception. I'm going to talk a little bit about that because the two sort of theories I want to talk about, I'm going to introduce you to a human experience. I'm going to call him Newman, the new human. We're going to talk about Blockbuster Video, for those of you old enough to remember Blockbuster Video and choosing and choice. And then I'm going to plant that seed around karma and soul progression above and beyond what Ivan just said about this human being sort of progression. So I believe in that concept of reincarnation. So before we start with reincarnation, I want to start with incarnation. Okay? So at that point of conception, when the biology behind mum and dad come together, and I think most of you will know the detail that then needs to follow. I don't need to go in that. But at that point of conception, there is the equivalent happening in this spirit world. I like to call that place heaven, where almost the two energy life forces of those human experiences in the spirit world, it's almost like a beam of light. So a doctor that puts their hands out at that point of conception, and over the next 10 months, the spirit world are introducing the concept of energy, becoming a being, a human being, in that experience that's about to happen. At the point of conception, I think there is opportunities, because the spirit world is a place of pure thought, doesn't necessarily work on the same time mechanics, that you can choose from that spirit world to be a human being because you have an interest. Maybe you see Earth as a training experience or a training planet. Maybe you want to go down there because other beings, your spirit realm, your heaven, have gone down to that place. And therefore you sort of choose. And if you're choosing for the first time, it goes back to exactly what Ivan was saying. Why wouldn't you think about the life that leads you to a yacht in the ocean? An easy life. Mike is dead. The spirit world didn't agree with that last bit. You would perhaps, as Newman, the new human being, you think, right, for some parents. Oh, sorry, I've got the other one. I don't know why I pointed. I mic'd up.
Why did you do that?
Wasn't talking about big brain and small brain. Right, where was we? Reincarnation. Right, new human being. So there you are, in heaven, in Blockbuster Video. Okay, and I think most people nodded. You understand that concept of choosing what you're going to watch. And I think you go into almost like a version of Blockbuster Video in heaven, and you start thinking, right, where shall I go on Earth? Which country? Who has the good weather, the bad weather? Oh, earthquakes, don't fancy that one. Well, that one looks pretty good. And you start to think about your parents. Well, where is the likelihood of an experience? I'm going to choose maybe a mum and dad that love each other, that appear to be on a journey where they're going to stay in love, that the pregnancy is going to be nice and healthy. I'm going to be a strong, healthy baby, and I'm going to go into a world that I don't have to work work that hard and I get to do all these fun things that you can do on earth as a human being. And perhaps because of your first experience, that all makes absolute sense. And it might be, and I'm going to fast forward a little bit of philosophy, it's only at the end of that experience do you think, that was amazing, I'd like to do that again, but this time I'm going to do it in the southern hemisphere as opposed to the northern. That was so great, now I'm going to do it as a man instead of a woman. Or I'm going to do it, all those different things. And if you just think about the variety of combinations that make us unique, imagine how many DVDs or videos in Blockbuster with the different contributes that make that human being. So I think that you might choose to reincarnate because you can, because there's an opportunity and you want to experience different things, often in that pursuit of happiness. And you might do it a dozen times, half a dozen times, hundreds of times, thousands of times, tens of thousands of times. Because if you've been doing this a long time since human beings are on this planet, in theory, you can be doing it a long time. And at some point, you may have got to that point that you're not just doing it for fun and experiences anymore, but maybe you want to be on planet Earth to help other people, to do more. Maybe you look at those first couple of experiences where life was easy, and you realise that perhaps you relied on those servants like slaves. And if you go back far enough, perhaps it actually were slaves. And perhaps you exploited people. Perhaps they didn't have great terms and conditions, and you start to get a glimpse from a high perspective of their lives. And you think, I wonder what it was like to have been that person. So I'm going to experience that. Perhaps in the spirit world, you decide that you've done a lot of earthly experiences and you want to progress within the spirit realms. And you get to a point where you think, I've been dealing with my karma in that life, I punch them in the face, they punch me back, that you judge yourself to a point of thinking that my karma attached to me is like a debt, like a negativity. Because if I look at all my lives, or even just my last life, if as a purer soul I see some negativity in me, perhaps I'm unable to progress further within the spiritual realm, and therefore I want to go and pay that debt back or work off. So that's one of my sort of theories about the human experience as Newman and why we might continue to choose. Destiny plays a role about that, and that's why I say it's beyond Blockbuster. You're reading the synopsis, you're thinking about what it might have, and there's an awful lot that the planets and astrology and others will say that was destined to be. You choose your date of birth, where you're going to be birthed, and you're choosing those elements of bits. But there is a couple of cruel conditions on earth. The first thing is we've all got free will. There is no script. You've got personal responsibility to do or not to do. Even though I believe that you're all given a principle guide that is with you through your entire earthly experience, whether or not you listen to them or even are aware of their existence is also another personal decision. So all of those ingredients that sort of come towards that, get to the point of, as a human being, why would I choose a difficult life? As a human being, perhaps we're not meant to understand, because the condition of earth is anything we may have done before experience is not an automatic memory. We don't turn up with a manual or a history. All of our experiences, all of our values, all of our cultures are taught to us. We start to inherit some of that DNA. But it's not a guarantee. And therefore the influence of my personal or private past experience is almost of zero relevance to here, because I don't have any memory of it. I would need to go into a meditative state. I would need to access those halls of learning. So I absolutely agree with Ivan. You live this life. And some people talk about the fact that you will only die once. Well, actually, I think if you only die once in this life, you're living every day. All those experiences are the important thing, as opposed to the phrase of only living once. You're living every day, you're living all those experiences. And as Newman, the new human being, sometimes you might go down because it was so much fun. Sometimes some of the group of people you deal with, soul groups, you want to do it with them again. But you want to change the relationships. Mum and dad become brothers and sisters, or children, or neighbours. You hope you don't bump into the people that really wound you up and are miserable. But when you do, there's something within that core of your body. You shake their hand, you're in the room, and you think, I really don't like that person. I don't know why. So perhaps there's that element. My theory that I want to introduce us with is why. Why in the first place, in a place of pure, unconditional love and thought like heaven, why would we want to come and experience life as a human being? I spoke about the idea of training planet. Let's imagine that you are in the spirit world. I like to call it heaven. And you're up there, And some of the people that have been up there for a while that seem to know a bit more about heaven than you, talk to you about this game of life, of eternal progression. And they talk about a start and a finish point. And they gather you all up and they say, we know you're all quite happy doing what you're doing, but why not come and experience all these different things that you can only do with a human body in a three-dimensional world where you're going to be able to experience these things. Anyone that signs up for this mission is guaranteed to get to paradise. You are guaranteed to get to utopia. Follow me. We'll all start together. We will finish in utopia. But every time we progress on that board of life, I give you a couple of commitments and I give you a couple of rules, because my commitments to you is every time you enter the board of life, wherever you leave, you can return to. And you'll be able to continue to progress through that board of life. But all of your knowledge in this world, you're going to have to remember as much as you can. You can choose perhaps who you start the journey with and who you continue the work with, but there'll be free will, there'll be personal responsibility. Don't worry, I have a map. And I have a map that takes us from the start to the finish. We can all study the map now together. At the end of your first day exploring the game of life, we will all come back here and we will review the map. We will review the routes we took to go from A to B. We review the experiences together. We'll do that as a group. But when you start the next day, you'll start where you left and you'll have to do it without the map. But don't worry, because I'll be here and you can contact me. And I've got the map. And I can let you know if you're still going in the right direction. Because between us, we could agree the route. We could start here and say, right, when you start there, tomorrow, and you've got a day of adventure and experience, actually, I think the shortest route to go from there to there is there. But if you detour, you'll see some pretty amazing things. You'll come across ladders that take you over the hill and progress you faster. You'll snakes and slides where you can go back and experience those things. But each day perhaps represents a life and an experience. So there you are, and you start in the board of life, and you're really enjoying doing what you do. But as you're on the board of life, you totally forget about the route you agreed, because you've got no memory of it. You've had this intuition and this instinct perhaps pulling you along like a piece of elastic, keeping you on that straight of narrow. But you've forgotten about that because you're just enjoying the moment, you're enjoying the experience. And you've bumped into all these other people that are on the same journey, and they want to go off, and perhaps you decide to go off with them. And throughout the different days, every night you go back to the hostel or the hotel and you get to debrief this and you go, I totally forgot about that. And I didn't achieve half the things I wanted to do, so I'm going to go back there and I'm going to do that. And there is this opportunity to do that. And then, of course, on the route, you come across people and places. You come across people who say, I've got the map. Follow me, join my club, and I will reveal to you the map and the route to paradise. During that experience, some of these people become so passionate about their map, they believe that their map is the only map. And you might go through an entire day walking along them thinking, I'm enjoying this map, only to return to the hotel and say, that's only part of the map. Well, they've drawn their own map. But yet I went off and I explored that with them. And there would be these different things to do. Every day I choose to go back, I start again, and I get to continue to progress, perhaps in different boots and different routes, all in the knowing that I am continuing to progress. So that is one of my sort of plain English interpretations of perhaps how I might continue to incarnate and do different things and have different experiences, all in the pursuit of happiness and doing things I can only do in this three-dimensional body and world, understanding that the laws will apply once no need for that memory. And in a way, it almost doesn't matter. So this is where I come back to say I absolutely agree with Ivan. Because when I'm on this journey and I'm on that experience, it's all about what I'm doing now. If I'd agreed at the hotel that my wife Claire and I were going to do that together, and everything comes together so we've had that opportunity, we might say it's mission accomplished. But if by chance we made alternative decisions and we went off and did different things, we might regroup in that place. And I just want to finish that with a little bit of what I think evidence part of my theory. And I don't know, Shirley is in here actually, Shirley Monaco. Are you in here, Shirley? Probably hear her if she was actually. Shirley is a poem, and she does a lot of automatic poetry. And when my son Oscar was born 6 months ago, she wrote a poem, which I call Heaven's Gate. And it is written in the concept that my oldest son, Ethan, and Noah, in heaven, all say their goodbyes to each other in the spirit world, knowing that they would reunite with Oscar 6 months ago when he was born. And it goes into that conception of the fact that Ethan and Noah and Oscar, in the spirit world, all chose potential identities and roots into planet Earth as part of the family. I also know from the spirit world, in the same way we physically grieve the physical presence of the people we lose, I know at the point of incarnation, conception, the spirit world miss the spirit being that comes back down to earth. So, they are a couple of theories. What we're going to do now, we will stop and we'll pause, and if people want to ask some questions about anything Ivan and I have said, we're going to do that. And then what we're going to do is, for those that want to participate, a little bit of a meditation. I call it my gatekeeper meditation, my meeting circle. I'm going to go on a little journey, hopefully a bit of a guided meditation, where we have the opportunity to do a number of different things. One of them, we're accessing the halls of learning. Within the halls of learning, there are some records. Some people refer to this as the Acacia records, where we might access memories of those experiences. We don't have to go into what it is we're accessing. Is it that assumes the personality, so my soul, assume the personality of Ashley Robinson experience, my soul collect just sends part of its energy for the experience of Ashley Robinson, while also existing simultaneously in the spirit world. As a spiritualist medium, when we give evidence of life after death, we give evidence of the personality of the person who talks about living a life after this change that we call death. And as a medium, we do that. They don't often come through and go, it's Ashley Robinson. I want to give a message to someone claiming to be, my granddaughter. But just so they know it's me, I was also Fred Bloggs and Jane Smith, and I was a soldier in World War II. Right. From an evidential point of view, they're giving the evidence from the personality. And then there's this element of, at what point do you reincarnate? Can you be in the spirit world and part of you decide to incarnate again? As a spiritualist medium, we know that the vast majority of our communicators talk about making a place for us, about waiting for us. Are they waiting for the rest of the party to reunite so they can incarnate together? Or is it just a part? So I'll plant those seeds, probably another talk for another day. But now I'm going to pause. Ivan and I can do a couple of questions and answers with you. And then probably in about 5-10 minutes, for those that want to participate, we'll be able to go and do a meditation, and then you can share a little bit about what you've come across. I'm not sure if that mic's totally dead.
1, 2.
There we go. Any questions, folks, on anything we've said?
Questions.
You don't quite have 10-15 minutes to share your
theory,
but if there's something you want to say, in a nutshell.
It is a thought for you, because I like to question everything, as I said earlier this morning, and I always like to throw questions out. I've got no answers, I'll just give you questions and thoughts, because how do you learn? What's the best way to learn? Question. Does that make sense? Because we all know the answers are actually in the question. I've got very philosophical today, haven't I? Wow. Do most of you believe that our lives here, now, we're talking about now lives, there's certain preordained things that will happen? Yeah? Yeah. Fine, I'm not saying no, I'm not saying, I believe that as well. It's like the map, okay? But the problem is, you all read maps, haven't you? Or looked at maps? It doesn't look like where you're going though, does it? The map is not the territory. Because it doesn't look like that. Does that make sense? Like the plans of a house, blueprints, will look nothing like the house. So you've got your map of life that you've sorted yourself out, allegedly, before you come down. But then there's different ways of getting A to B, isn't there? I mean, where are we? Where are we? Chelwood.
Stratford-upon-Avon.
We're in Stratford, yeah. Right, we're in Stratford, yeah. Say I want to go to Birmingham. In a car, yeah? There's so many different ways I could get there. Direct route, which would be up the motorway, or through the country lanes, which would be through the country lanes, or I could go back down, go around the roundabout and come back up. There's so many different ways I can get there. But the end result's the same, isn't it? I'll be in Birmingham. Birmingham? Why do I live in Birmingham? I'll be in Birmingham.
I think you're lost. I think you're in Wolverhampton.
But there's lots of different ways to get there. That's a bit like life here, isn't it? You know what I mean? You'll end up getting somewhere, which I believe things are preordained. Not everything in life, do you know what I mean? Because do you have free will? Do you have free will? Do you really have free will? Do you? I'll do it again once more for effect. Do you? Right.
Malcolm's got a question.
I used to live, hang on, I can just get this one out of the way quickly. I used to live in a block of flats a while ago, council flats. Right, not even matters, 6 floors up. There's 2 lifts. Right, there's always 2 lifts. So if I have free will, yes, and the responsibility of the outcome of things is my...
Do you use that?
Gone. And it's my responsibility, and whatever I'm responsible for will affect the outcome. Yes? Got it? You with me? Follow me quickly. Good. Right. 2 lifts. Both doors open at the same time. Yeah? Lift A, I will get in, will take you safely to the ground floor. Lift B, there's a fault in it, and it will snap, and I will plummet to my death. Yes? Yeah. Right. They both open at the same time. Is it my free will to go in what door? Yes? Yes, right. It is. So I can go the left door, the right door. But is it my free will because I don't know the outcome of the lifts? Does that make sense? Difficult, isn't it? I've got no answer here, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there. There's always one. Always one. I suppose I tripped on the stairs. It was council block. You don't want to go down the stairs, it smells of puff. But you get what I mean. Does that make sense? It is my free will to go in the doors, what door I pick, but it's not my free will because I won't know the outcome. Does that make sense? It's like when you enter a relationship. We all enter relationships in all the good wills of we're in love and etc., but they don't all work out, do they? No. Yes, go on.
Malcolm as well.
Be guided by spirit into which lift
This is a whole different ball game you're going now, right?
Because
Because
the outcome that
you've got to get I totally rouse. Okay. Well, yeah, but right. Do spirit run your life? No.
They can't help you on this.
Thank you. Yeah. They don't run your life. It's your responsibility. It's not theirs. It's like you've heard people say, I've even done. I bang my head away. What do you make me do that for? It's not down to them. It's me being a clumsy sod. You know, it's your responsibility.
We've got Malcolm's question as well. I was exactly what you just said there about wanting to do it, but other people's free will also influence us. So even with destiny, and
By the way, I got in lift A. I was all right. Okay.
even with destiny and me choosing my life and me knowing that I'm going to get in lift A and spirit telling me, if a local psychopath serial killer decides with their free will to end my experience, which was the right destiny? Was it the serial killer's destiny? Have they chosen that experience or was it mine? So I think other people's free will can interfere with the concept of destiny. I think it's one of the reasons why we say we don't do fortune telling, because we're not very good at it and we don't know it, but the future is still being written in that certain extent in response to your life.
Serious note,
Yeah,
David.
Ivan and then Malcolm's question.
Right, I've got a serious note here, all right, because we talk about predestined things, etc. You say that to a parent who's lost a child. Do you know what I mean? It's all serious. I went serious as well, because anyway. That goes on with serial killer. Just stay away from them, actually, really, serial killers.
Yeah,
Not good.
and I think that as a human being, we're not necessarily able to understand that. Some of the more evolved souls, perhaps there's a guy called Ralph Steadman that still influenced me on my philosophy, would talk about the fact that, you know, the serial killer, that could have been conditions averse that weren't designed. Someone got ill, the body was defective, there was a mental health problem. I think with most psychopaths, there are mental health problems that lead them to that decision. And that wasn't predestined. There's something that went wrong. Cancers, earthly conditions that aren't necessarily predestined. We know from the spirit world that some people said we knew that the tectonic plates were going to cause a tsunami in Sri Lanka on Boxing Day, and then there were thousands of spirit guides that said we didn't have a clue that many people entered the spirit world at that time, and we were as in shock as you were in Earth. So I think we get these alternative theories based on perhaps even people's understanding in the spirit world. But we'll ask Malcolm to put his question across now.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Very, very briefly, it's about obviously reincarnation, past lives, and incarnation. So President Putin is being incarnated into this world now. And well, did he have destiny? Did he have a preordained plan that he was going to be a monster that he is? Or is it just natural progress?
Well, did Hitler?
Same thing as that.
You know what I mean? It's like...
You want me to answer first and then you come in?
No, I've got no answer.
You got no
There
answer.
is no answer.
Yeah.
There is no
There's
answer.
no right answer. What I can do is I can share my opinion. And for anyone that didn't hear it on mic, was this question: people like Putin, were they destined? I think the experience that is happening, and with Hitler, the experience that did happen, as you look back, even from a human being experience, you say there were things that came out of that were good. Okay, the United Nations, the refugee conventions, some of the policies and the strategies around sort of peace. The spirit world will tell us that during the Second World War, it wasn't just a conflict, but there was a battle against evil itself. And the spirit world, and I think it was Zodiac and some of the teachings around the Greater World Christian Spiritual Association said, humanity is fighting an evil that is present right now on earth and needs to be taken care of. Now, other people will have opinions on the fact that the evil was meant to be there in order for good to come together to unify against it as the allies to take it out. Other people would say it just happened and it was then about the earthly response to that. You could say the same with Putin. Was he destined to do that? Are there going to be much better things that come out? Will it eventually lead to the use of nuclear weapons and be even horrific problems? Or will it lead to the use of nuclear weapons being deactivated? So all of that, I said the future bit we're not so sure about.
Finish. Yeah. Finish. Right. Okay. In the room, all of you, is there anyone here who thinks they're evil? Yeah, mate.
Just
Well, you are. There's good and bad. There's bad and good. We're all capable of being monsters. Everyone is. We're all capable of it. Just because we choose not to. It's like, I see this program, a very good program actually, and the bloke said, it was a drama, and the bloke said something very true in it. I thought, do you know what? He's right. Because he said, everyone can be a murderer. You just haven't met that right person yet. Think about it. Probably, you know what I mean? It's like, because we're all capable of being monsters. We are, because it's the duality of the human nature. It's a real pickle. And he's having a laugh with us sometimes, because it's like, we do. We all got egos, yes? Some got bigger egos than others. You get uncontrollable. Does that make sense? There is the mental illness side of stuff, which is a completely different thing, like schizophrenia. Proper mental illness I'm talking about, not when you've got the blues. But there is that as well. But then, what makes a monster? Who knows? Because people like Putin, and even Hitler, they had good family upbringings. They had no reason to sort of turn that way.
And you find most of them sort of people have had really very good upbringing.
Yeah. Apparently Hitler was a vegan and vegetarian, yeah. See, nutters, all nutters. Bit of red meat would have stopped everything, wouldn't it? That sounded a bit wrong, didn't it? Go on. Any other questions?
Do come in with your questions. Otherwise, just sort of to continue that and to answer your question direct, I want to quote two people. So one was the Ralph Steadman theory that used to say everything was meant to be. And actually, Putin would have had an agreement and a soul contract with other people that he needed to do what he was going to do in order to affect change and progression. This is all about progression. And other people would have accepted a contract to come down and be part of the victims. And I said to him, but I don't understand that. He said, well, you're a human being in this experience, you're not meant to. And it's only because of the evolution of some of his teachings. And he continues to influence my philosophy. But he would say, as a soul, when you're collecting this stuff, because I spoke about child cancer, why would you choose child cancer or to be a victim of that? And he said, perhaps because in the next life you're going to come back and you're going to be one of the doctors or scientists that lead to a cure. And in terms of that earthly experience, you know that it's there because of the properties of earth, and you make a soul conscious decision to come down to experience that. Perhaps the parents that have gone through it are going to go on to be carers or doctors, and perhaps you just can't get understanding now because of your personality. You're very much attached to this life and the feelings. But I definitely don't think it's one guy called God in charge and a throne making all these decisions. I feel that, in fact, I've got a lecture on this tomorrow. God is energy, and there's this idea of all those things happening are still governed by laws, and those laws have effect. There is cause and effect for everything we do. But birds of a feather flock together, and like attracts like in the same way that like attracts like. And we can choose to a certain extent to go into more difficult situations, and you might not do it for the first time. And the last thing I was going to quote, my godfather, Bob Brunton, who's one of my mediumship guides, if he saw someone, say, very disabled, and my dad is actually just into the room, my dad would talk about being in the car with him, and Bob Brunton saw a man that was troubled with arthritis and all sorts of conditions, and he was bent over with a hunchback. And Bob immediately said, oh, bless him, he must have broken someone's back in a previous life. Now, Bob had that belief that karma was almost direct like that. He broke someone's back in a previous life, he's come back now and he's suffering the consequences. Uri Geller was very controversial when he spoke about disability and Down syndrome, about how people done that. These are all people's theories, and like when I spoke about someone having the map, I think we've all got bits of the jigsaw. And we're all still working it out, because if we were meant to know all of it, we would be born with all of the knowledge we're meant to have.
There'd be no point, would there? Sorry. If we all knew everything, because you're not meant to know, if we all knew, what would be the point? Do you know what I mean? It's like looking at a crossword puzzle that you filled in. And we're never going to know. I mean, probably when you go back to heaven, you get more of a clue. But we've all got the past lives, and I always, I have a theory as well. Not a theory, I have a belief. It's like, sometimes stuff just happens. You know, the chaos theory, it just happens sometimes. There might be no rhyme or reason behind it. It just happened. Do you know what I mean? So don't get hung up on it. We're going to take London now.
Yeah, so do the meditation. Oh, Peter Goddard question. So one last question from
Sorry,
Peter.
one last question.
Could it be that we see abject bad things to see abject good things? So out of all the Putin, Hitler, all of those, Genghis Khan, Vladimir Taylor did, what actually came out of that was actually people realised you can't do that, and good overtakes evil. So that it's almost like saying evil never triumphs.
And to know the difference.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Well, yeah, it's like a duality. There has to be a duality. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
It's the yin and the yang. You've got to have both. If you look at the yin and yang, especially the yin and yang sign, there's always a little bit of one in the other.
Yes.
You know, it's that duality. There has to be that, or else the world would not function. Down here would not function. You have to have that. Plus the fact you can look back to Orwell, we hope that never happens again. Invariably does though, doesn't it? Yeah, so do we learn? No. Sorry, that was a bit bitchy of me. We don't. No, but you've got the Putin thing. Hopefully it won't escalate to where the last fellow went. Clever man though, Hitler, really. He was. Nutter, but clever. Sorry.
No, good. Right. So what we're going to do then, we're going to do a bit of a meditation now. Anyone never meditated before? Okay. Okay, T and Peter. So the opportunity really is we're going to work within our mind's eye. Okay. And this is based on the concept that there is other knowledge not necessarily contained within our physical computer or our brain. And we're going to go for a bit of a wander. We're going to invite our guides to come forward and perhaps introduce us. And we're going to access some of those memories. Now, if I ask you to think about your shopping list that we might keep within the mind's eye, or what's on telly next week that you don't want to miss, some of that stuff and that memory will clutter there. We need to be able to clear it. We need to be able to clear the mind's eye, blank canvas or a blank mirror. The other thing we need to do is to distinguish the difference between memory in this life and experience versus something more vivid from the spirit world. And those of you working with spirit and energy will hopefully be more familiar with that. But this is a private thing for you. We're not doing past life regression. We're not doing deep into that. This is an open meditation. We're going to be in a room strapped to the front. We're going to stay there. What we're going to do is we're going to allow our mind's eye to wander. Okay? If you don't want to participate, keep your eyes open. You can listen. You can leave the room. For those that do want to participate, sit comfortably. And by comfortable, I mean uncross any legs. It's a practical thing in case you suddenly feel inspired to talk up and you forget you crossed your legs.
Before it actually starts, just a couple of things, right? Because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, when you go back to previous life, you actually go back to the point of when you passed. All right?
Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah.
So you might get some uncomfortable feelings. Don't worry, because remember you're in. As I said, you're in this room. Because I never forget, I was doing it in America. They're weird, the Americans. And this woman, it was more of a it was less of a meditation, more of a hypnotherapy group session. And her head just went poof, and she come out of it like that. She said, I've just been guillotined. Oh, we're not dizzy then. You know, and it's like, and then another woman said, I've got to say it, she said, oh, my back went because I was one of the lizards that came out of the sea and yeah, no, you weren't, love. Because we all got a soul. What soul is it? It's a human soul. So therefore, a human soul, not an animal soul. Yes? Go.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
but
Just let it go a bit.
perhaps
So
the
if you-
human soul has ingredients from the
If you feel
newts that left the sea. You know?
uncomfortable, don't worry about it.
All part of it. We're all atoms, we're all energy, and that's what we access. We're going to access this minute. So sit comfortably, feet, planted firmly on the ground, and then just listen to my voice. And the other thing is, just from a sort of behind me, don't assume that you're going to have a very famous and powerful life, particularly if we're in this point of progression. We might have started off at a point of quite greed and selfishness. We go back 100 years ago where murder was the way to stay alive. All those sorts of things can happen. It's a film, okay? It's a memory, and it's not happening. So it's really important that we remember that. For anyone that afterwards still feeling an effect by that, come and talk to us when we're going to make sure we close down. But otherwise, close your eyes, folks. Get yourself nice and comfortable. I know that we might have a few people online doing this too. And just follow my voice, and then there'll be some private things that you will receive or hear or smell or sensation. And when we close, you will be able to remember them in this life, and we'll be able to talk about them for those that want to stay. Okay, so just a few seconds silence, and then follow my voice.
It's not actually.
You are walking along a country lane. The sun is shining down, and you feel warm and happy. There's an open field on your left, and a large woods on your right. You can hear birds singing in the trees, and a gentle breeze wafts against your face. You see ahead of you a small patch that leads to the right, into the woods. Take that path. It leads at a slight downward slope, winding in and amongst the trees. You can see the sun up above, shining down through the branches and creating a wonderfully warm and comforting environment. Small animals, such as squirrels, rabbits and chipmunks, peek out at you as you go on your way. The angle of descent gradually steepens, and you come to a cliff edge. You're not very high up. In fact, you are no higher than the tops of the trees on the ground below the cliff. You see that someone has cut large steps into the face of the cliff, and these lead downward to the wooded ground below. You go down these steps. It's a very easy descent, and you feel safe and secure as you go down. At the bottom, you cross the short expanse of grass to go once more in and amongst the trees. As you move on, you become aware of the sound of a babbling brook. The sound gets louder as you approach it. As the path makes a turn to the right, you see the brook ahead of you. Its busy waters rushing over and around are small and large stones. The path you're on follows along the side of the brook, and you walk along it, noticing how the water swirls and eddies as it goes on its journey. Other small streams come in to join it, and gradually it swells until it becomes a small river. As you walk on beside it, you enjoy occasional glimpses of fish in the river and of a duck or two that land on the water and then take off again. A large tree has fallen and stretches across the river. Its upper branches on the far bank. Take the opportunity to cross over. Jump onto the tree and the trunk and walk across. You feel firm and secure, knowing you will not slip or fall. On the other side, you notice a large number of wild flowers growing in and amongst the trees and the underbush. There is another path. You are obviously not the first to cross by the fallen tree. Follow along this path. Notice the flowers and again the animals and birds. Ahead of you, the trees start to thin and come out of the woods into a field. Stop and stand with the woods behind you. The fields stretch away to the horizon ahead of you. Off to the left, you can make out high mountains, and to the right, you can see the wood curving around and off with more fields beyond. But in front of you, in the middle of the field, at whose edge you stand, there is a circle of standing stones. Each stone stands 9 to 10 feet tall. There are a number of them forming the circle, great granite monoliths. They look older than time, as if they have stood there for a century upon century upon century, hundreds and thousands of years. Count how many stones you can see. Move forward into the ring. You feel happy, warm and comforted, as if the stones are guardians, surrounding you and keeping out all negativity. Walk to the very center of the circle and sit down on the grass. You are aware of the warmth of the sun and the sound of the birds. Again, you feel that gentle breeze on your cheeks. Close your eyes for a moment and breathe deeply. Breathe in all the wonderful, positive energies of this sacred place. As you sit there quietly, you become aware of another person joining you. Keep your eyes closed. This person has come up from behind you and now moves around to face you. It's a good presence, a comforting one. It is your personal guide. It is the doorkeeper who has watched over you progress for many years. Don't yet open your eyes, but stand up. Reach out your hands and take those that are offered. Feel them. Feel the love and warmth that comes from them. As you open your eyes in the circle, see your guide, your doorkeeper. What is their gender? Are they young or old? What are they wearing? Notice everything about this guide. Perhaps ask them what name or identity you should call them and greet them appropriately. Ask them if they have a special message for you. Ask them if they can give you some evidence of a past life experience. Know that this stone circle is a special place. You can come here any time, knowing that you can meet with your guides or anyone else you wish and be perfectly safe and secure. You can ask all you wish to know of your guide, and you can ask them to tell you about a past life experience. No one else can come here without your permission. We will listen to them now, and they will tell us a story, because when they have finished speaking, we will bid them goodbye, and we will say that we will meet them again. So we'll now take this moment for them to download that information to us so we can take it with us. We want to know about a past life experience. We want to know how old we were when we passed. We want to know where we lived in the world. We want to know what gender we had, whether or not we worked, if we had a family. We're interested in any names, anything symbolic they want to give us, anything important in that life and experience. We will take a few moments silence to continue to receive that information that our guide is passing us in truth. For this short experience, we have finished talking to our guide at this time. We say thank you. We bid them goodbye. We say we will meet them again very soon. We're now going to turn and walk out of the circle back towards the woods. Retracing our steps, go back to the river, cross the fallen tree trunk. Follow back along the path until it parts company with the stream. Go up the steps in the cliff and head out of the woods again. Keep walking back onto the country road. Know that we've had a unique journey, but that we can repeat this at any time. And we have that gift of memory of a past life experience. We are grateful for the opportunity that we have had to meet with one of our guides today. Perhaps a familiar guide, perhaps a new guide, given us evidence, confirmation and verification about a past life experience. And we have left the woods, we have left the meeting circle. We are back function room at Stratford upon Avon, We're at the Spirit Seeker weekend. We raise our eyes. Surrounding the same people that we were sat with are still there. We're in that suite. We're back at Spirit Seeker, opening our eyes. Grateful for the experience that we have had. Grateful. Communicate, guides, and help ones. And take a moment, and as we open our eyes, we're just going to look around our own tables, and we're going to see that everyone has opened. They are back in the room, no longer in a meditation, here at Spirit Seeker in this physical experience. Look around the table, talk to people, just quickly say hello, ask them if they're all right. Check that everyone is back. Take a moment. Good, right. Hands up if got anyone on your table you've got any concerns about. Everyone back? Okay, right. Okay, folks. Thank you. Now,
Silence was the most silence. It was lovely.
I was just saying, lovely song. So, give yourself a round of applause, actually, for going. We've got a little bit of time to talk about a past life experience. If there are things that people want to share, I'm going to ask just a couple of sort of cues. So, hands up if you're able to follow some or all of that meditation. Yeah, almost everyone was able to follow some of it. Who made it a meeting circle? Good, so yeah, over half the room. Hands up if you met a guide, or at least a... Okay, good, almost half the room there, good. Hands up if that guide was new to you, a new guide. Yeah, we've got about a dozen or so people meeting a new guide that's going to perhaps work with that. Hands up if they were able to tell you a bit about a past life experience. Okay, so yeah, probably small. My hands have reduced significantly as we get towards the end. Hands up if you still remember bits of what they've told you. Yes, about six or seven of us. Good. So, useful thing, and those of you that work at different levels will be familiar with your own preferred ways of meditating and doing stuff. But I like that. I always imagine it as a bit of a Stonehenge that I go to. It's a place that I help with when I'm developing. And ultimately, we've met someone there that is already to give us some stuff. Now, I've done past life regression. I've actually been regressed and I've done bits and pieces myself. And I was fascinated, because I'm interested in this stuff, to find out bits of those sort of previous life and experience. There are also various guides and ambassadors that we're going to encourage to talk to us tonight.
Did anyone actually feel really uncomfortable at any point? There's a few of you. Yeah. Like you was scared or, because as I said at the beginning, it's like sometimes you take it back to the point of your passing. Yeah. And you might not know why you're feeling like that, but don't worry about it. It's normal. It's natural when you do this process. Yeah, you can be. Does that make sense? Yeah, that can happen. Doesn't mean anything, so you can just shake away, it's left behind. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? It's like unwanted baggage, we don't want that. We'll leave it away.
Felicity, we just want... Falling over.
Yeah.
I don't know what her husband said, but it wasn't good based on the look of it.
It's that wife look you get when you turn to stones. The Medusa look.
Okay, so Tina?
Yeah, when you have regression and that, can it help you move forward with your life?
I suppose if you're trapped in a past life experience, it potentially can. And if you sort of still need some healing to get over that. Equally, if you were oblivious to it and you suddenly go back to it, you might not always be proud of the person you were or the actions you take. I love parenting, and I'm really proud to be parent to my 3 boys, but within a 24-hour period of parenting, I can be quite ashamed with losing my temper or behaviour. And if you suddenly get a glimpse of an entire life in one go, you might not about past life regression when I've done it a bit more. I try and say, I want it more like a eulogy. All right? When I get a glimpse of a past life experience, I want all of the good stuff and all the highlights as opposed to the full download. Because if I look at all the negative in the decisions, even if I lived my best possible life, I might not be as proud of those things. Equally, it can be difficult for people. We spoke about the soul not having a gender. We know love is love and we love who we love. But that can become very confusing for us in this experience, because if our last experience was as a man and we're in this experience as a woman, or we're now gender fluid or gender neutral, all of those feelings about this current experience can become confusing to the overwhelming knowledge of previous life. So in a way, I think it's nice to keep it separate. But if you have started dabbling with this and you've got bits of it, it's also good to know it was the end of that experience.
Yeah. And yes, like what I was just saying, it's past. The clue's in the name, it's past, it's done. You don't need to hold that baggage anymore, you really don't. And here's one for you to make you think, because I like to make people think. I know we mentioned Hitler. How the hell was Hitler? It's weird how things work out. That's you and your Putin, that is.
I'll probably say
It's a thought for you.
it's 4 o'clock, isn't it?
Hey. Yeah. That big lives over there. Boom. That's about that. Questions?
Anyone want to share or any
Anyone
questions
share
about the concept of past life?
Talk to one.
Anyone want to share? You married? Yep.
Sorry.
Spoke about Bob Brunton.
Yeah.
Now, many years ago, he told me that I did 4 past.
Yep.
When I was regressed by somebody, I saw that past life and I saw that he kicked me to death. But I also knew that in each life that I've spent with him, things get better. So there's a progression. So although each life is a separate life, actually coming back and spending a life with him each time got better. Whether there'll be another one, I don't know.
Yeah, and clearly a very trusting soul to have gone back after being kicked to death. I mean, I was just talking about that sort of concept of that understanding. And as a human being, I think, no, if I went through that experience, you know, what was in it for me? What was it I was asking about having that?
I've got something there, because that gets to the point of what's acceptable. Not acceptable now would have been acceptable years ago. You know, because years ago, I mean, we all know the wires, they were treated pretty some of them, that makes sense. And their attitude would be, well, I must have deserved that. Do you know what I mean? They would not blame the husband. They would think, oh, I'm not saying you deserve to be kicked to death. But do you know what I mean? You had that different attitude back then in this earthly realms. And I've got another one for you. We do the Ouija board a lot. Can I say that?
Yeah.
I just did, didn't I? We work the Ouija board a lot at the women in church. We ain't done it for ages, have we? You haven't, yeah?
No, not since I was with you.
And we had George Bush. Richard Bush come through as the president of the women in church. And we discussed, was you on that one? Your dad was there?
Yeah.
And it gave us a couple of us what we were in the previous life. He told me one of my lives. I'm not going to share it because it's private.
Oh, go on.
No. But and it was like, wow. But anyway, sorry. And yeah, you probably could. You can probably connect that same person, you know, because it's a loving. It's all about love at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Loving and love. Yes. Yeah. And so you obviously love the man, especially if he kicked you to death. What are you doing the other ones? Just a little beating every now and then. Are you waiting to about 10 lines down the line and then is that in there?
I just said. So,
No, actually,
my godmother, and has been around my whole life, and knew obviously Bob Brunton very well. I just wanted to sort of just talk, I suppose, very briefly about that next stage and so what's in it. And I've just trained as a spiritual counsellor with Leslie Knight, one of our principal tutors, as Mr. Ivan Lee. And you know, the hat you wear as a counsellor very different to the hat of a medium. But as a counsellor, we talk about bereavement counselling, and we talk about going through that. And Ralph Steadman, one of my philosophy tutors, spoke about how when you are counselling, I just realised I've got an actual professional at the back of the room that knows a lot more about this than me, but talk about it in my plain English, you can correct me later, Maggie. This idea of, in terms of getting over what's happened in this life, some of the only sort of point you can do through counselling about owning it or working steps, actually the most powerful thing that comes out about it from a spiritual point of view is the acceptance of what's happened, the forgiving of the person that's done it, and then what Ralph found as a spiritualist is that thanking the person for that experience helped people totally go over it. And I said, how do you thank someone for one of the worst experiences in your life? But he said, I'm not saying that people achieve that in this life, but what I found is that in terms of the real grief they were going through, if someone had done something quite horrific to them, accepting it, owning it, forgiving them was giving so much back. Thanking them for the experience while they were still alive, he actually saw almost complete recovery in terms of why the person was coming from counselling. And he used to associate this with progressed souls. Talk about soul contracts where, why would someone do something really horrific to me? It's like, because you promised them in heaven that you would, because they wanted to be able to learn from it. Again, I'm unable to contextualise that as a human being, but I thought it was quite an interesting sort of spiritual point of view.
See, and I don't agree with any of that. So there's the difference. I forgot what I was saying.
Questions?
Questions, yes, and also while you're thinking of questions, I don't keep carping on about it because it is like past life. To be honest, we've got enough to deal with this life, haven't we? To worry about what happened in a previous life. So as long as you're striving to be the best you can be in this life, it matters, does it? Because let's be honest, the past is past. We ain't worried about tomorrow. You've only got the present, haven't you? That's all there is. That's all you can work with is the present. You can't, to a degree, you cannot, not predict, what's the word? Influence what will happen tomorrow. You can have plans, influence it, can you? So you've only got now. It's always about now. It's now. You're living now. You're not going to, oh, it's just gone. That moment's just gone, so I can't do that again. Do you know what I mean? So that's what you want to put your focus on. A better person. But not that you're not better people, by the way. A bit worried about some of that, but But that's what you should be really progressing for. It's like the now. Yes? Yeah. A bit deep that, wasn't it? I don't do deep. But it was. Questions? Yeah. Oh, here we go. Who invited? Go on, Mel.
Give me the mic. First and foremost, what a wonderful presentation, both of you. And the question is,
Yeah, because one's going for the broadband.
Okay, the question is, when we look at past lives and reincarnation, etc., I mean, obviously we have to look at a sceptical point of view as well. I'm referring to hypnotherapy. Whilst that can certainly bring forward substantially, could be some fantastic past lives, we have to be very, very careful that it's not genealogy through the genes. It's maybe when you think you're a seafaring captain of the 16th century, you may have read a book as a small child.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
Or it's just when you regress to an old person who was in a sailing ship, it's maybe your great-great-great-grandfather's genes in your body. It's surfacing through the hypnosis whilst you think it's you. It's not, it's part of you, it's a genealogy thing. And that's the problem I've got when we look at reincarnation. I don't believe in reincarnation, by the way, but being a researcher, I look at the other side of the coin in the pocket. There's always two sides, but just your thoughts on that, Ivan and Ashley.
That's just one, please, Malcolm. All right. That's the one, and he's quite right, because sometimes they do that in the hypnotherapy course as well. Of course, years ago I did it. Hypnotherapy course, it's like, you could be watching a film, I don't know, I'm going to pick on the Germans again. You could watch a film about World War II and that, and it's in your psyche somewhere. Right? It's not to the forefront, because you've got the free minds, haven't you? I can't remember what they are. It's long ago I did this course. You've got your free minds, you've got your current mind, you've got your latent mind, and you've got the bit that you never recall. What's it called?
Subconscious mind?
Subconscious, there we go. You've got your subconscious, etc. That makes sense? And it can be buried deep in your subconscious, But the hypnotherapy would bring it out. You think, oh yeah, it was a German soldier. No, maybe not. Maybe it's a film he was watching when he was a kid. Does that make sense? There's a fine line. But that's why I always say, if you get information like names and places, you can look up records. There's proof of that. Does that make sense? You know, that's the best way to do it. Or if you were someone, I don't know, famous. I don't know, who thinks there was someone? Oh, I'm not going to put you on the spot. Why is it? I'll do it like this. A lot of people do think they were, what's the correct term?
Influential?
No. The, I'm going to say it, I don't want to say anyone. Native Americans, that's it. That's the correct term. Native Americans. A lot of people think they were Native Americans, don't they? Yeah? A lot of people have Native American guides. Yes? Why is that then? I don't, by the way. Well, I do have one. We call him Two Dogs. It's a joke there. Think about, oh, you heard the joke. And but why? I have my theory why. I know it's sort of slightly off subject here. Is because they were a very earthbound, very earthy, spiritual nation. Yes, and they were wiped out in one. I mean, if you've ever read the book "Bury My Heart on Wounded Knee," it's actual factual accounts of the extermination, basically, of the Native American. And that's probably what they are, guys, because they were very earthy, spiritual people that all went at once. Yeah. So the Chinese as well. I mean, people are Chinese guys, etc., etc. People are just normal blokes. I'm just a bloke.
Yeah.
And Egyptians, and everyone thinks right. See, the God's going quicker, the mind's going quicker than the mouth will move now. It's like you've been to a place abroad, and you know you've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chances are you have been. It's simple as that. Or you know what's exactly around that corner. I'm talking about actual physically. I don't mean life journey. You know, it's like, I mean, one of my ex-partners, we went to Egypt. We went in the
Pyramids.
pyramids. Yeah, not the pyramids. The Valley of the Kings. Anyone been to the Valley of the Kings? Oh, come on. Someone must have lived. You know what? Been to the Valley of the Kings. Isn't it hot? Wow. And then you can go in actually inside where the burial chambers, etc. And she was collapsing. She was absolutely all over the place. Just because she'd been there and all the memories just flooding back. That makes sense at some level.
I went to my meditations, that count.
Sorry?
I went to the Valley of the Kings in my meditation.
Yeah, of course it does.
It's cheaper.
It's cheaper. Don't have to fill out silly forms anymore. Yeah. Right. Any other questions before we go on? Sorry.
Just on the back end of Malcolm's question, and for those of you who come to my conversation about God, atoms. We're all made of atoms. We're all made of energy. And what we do know from a scientific point of view is when you take another bit of biology from someone else, like a heart transplant, there is lots of evidence about aspects of that personality. And I've always had it explained to me, at that point of conception and incarnation, there are many different bits of our body, like interfaces, you know, our spiritual self and our physical self and our mental self. All of these bits of the body fuse together over the 9 months sort of period, hopefully healthy for a healthy baby to be born. It continues to grow. And there are aspects of that, because the personality is the ultimate bit that survives that change after we call death. The physical body is our vessel for containing the soul and the body. That changes again. We know we can't destroy energy, but we can change it. We can cremate a body which becomes a corpse. And the difference between a corpse and a human being is the presence of that spirit or personality. And then there's that survival aspect. When bits of body like heart transplants, people pick up on that, there is aspects of that energy. Now we know that energy, if we talk about atoms, and atoms for a while, what scientists said, that is the smallest bit of energy we can measure. Because if energy was a piece of string, they kept cutting it in half until they got the smallest bit of string, and they were like, Tom, smallest bit. And then science developed again, they had microscopes and so, actually within the atom there's particles, within the particles there are protons, there are neutrons. And I'm not going to go into GCSE science now, but energy is in itself intelligence, and energy is in constant communication with other energy.
What's in the space in between the particles?
Energy.
Is it? What holds it all together?
And it cannot be destroyed,
What
it can be
actually holds
changed.
it all together?
Yeah.
What?
You're yawning. It's okay.
All right, no.
Right, I think we've come towards the end of our workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Ashley Robinson.
I've been Ivan Lee. Thank you very much.
See you later.
Thank you.